Now on 3, we're stepping back to the 80s to remember the station that gave us the radio stars of today, perhaps the biggest pirate station of the decade. Let's take a trip down memory lane now to bring back Radio Nova.
"25 years ago this week, in an unprecedented outbreak of public support for an illegal organisation, the radio listeners of Dublin had taken to the streets."
If you say to anybody of our age, Radio Nova, they know immediately what you're talking about.
In recent days, the authorities had moved to close illegal radio stations all over Ireland.
It proved to those who control broadcasting that there was a market there, that there was an audience there, and they had to get on board. It also proved that people could do it without the state.
But the state didn't quite see it that way, and had shut down the most successful pirate of them all.
The arrival of such a powerful, professional radio station on the Irish airwaves that actually dramatically changed the way radio worked in Ireland.
Radio Nova, the music's just begun. Radio Nova, Europe's #1. Radio Nova, the music's just begun. Radio Nova, Europe's #1.
Former Radio Caroline DJ turned millionaire entrepreneur Chris Carey had come to Dublin in 1980, searching for another fortune in the largely unregulated, erratic world of Irish broadcasting. The Ireland of the early 1980s was a miserable enough place. High unemployment, higher emigration, and an economy on the brink of collapse.
It really was a hugely depressing time, and emigration and the amount of immigration really sucked the country dry, and the lack of money on top of that, and the lack of entrepreneurship. You couldn't get anything done. If you walked into somewhere to borrow money, they'd fall about laughing.
Chris Carey had done well. From humble beginnings in Chester, Carey had built a mini-empire in computer reselling after a mediocre broadcasting career as the improbably named Spangles Muldoon.
I had heard about Chris Carey. He was a figure that was in our imaginations as somewhere, another place we could go to get a job. Didn't strike me as being incredibly good or whatever, but I wasn't interested in being a DJ. I wanted to be in news. And I suppose looking back, he probably really was a better businessman, a better broadcasting entrepreneur than he was a DJ.
Carey, along with fellow Radio Caroline DJ Robbie Robinson, whose on-air name was a slightly more believable Robbie Dale, had been told there was money to be made in Irish radio.
I'm not sure if he did his market research beforehand. I'm not sure that he did his focus groups beforehand and did his market research in that way. I'd say he had a strong sense that this was an enterprise to throw his weight behind and his considerable business acumen behind.
Since the mid-70s, channels had been springing up everywhere, with anyone with half a voice or half a transmitter turning their hands to launching a pirate station, largely influenced by the British pirate ships such as Radio Caroline.
When you think about it, it was bizarre that somebody hired a ship and started a radio station on the ship. I mean, where were we? And was this the Berlin Wall or something? Because there was a Berlin Wall around both Britain and Ireland in terms of broadcasting.
It came down to people who'd been interested in radios for many years to provide their own radio stations, and usually it was bedrooms and various things like that, sort of towards the early mid-70s. And then later in the 70s, it got a little more commercial with the ARD and Big D going into commercial premises.
So I went up to a house in Sarsfield Road in Inchicore, and I used to broadcast in there on a Wednesday night. Terrified I was for the first while, and it was just great fun. Who was listening to us? Nobody.
Now we have a missing dog report. It's a black Labrador missing from the Inchicore.
Rather well down the hockey down in Cork, so we're told. And hello to everybody in the art department.
It was from Breaking Glass. I've just forgotten her name. I always do.
It was filling a vacuum, because there was really no alternative to RTE for part of that period. There was just RTE1, there was no pop station, there was no popular music station catering to that market. So these pirates sprang up, and everybody of my age at that time, I was in my late teens, we listened to one pirate or another, and they seemed to almost be almost micro pirates. Every little area seemed to have its own.
The stations themselves were quite something else.
Most radio stations, they were above a dodgy shop or in a basement somewhere or in somebody's attic, or we actually had a radio station in a guy's shed.
The Fine Gael Orda Fish opened last night at the RDS Dublin. Tommy Vance until 11 o'clock this morning. Bring you both the good sounds in disco music. And
my first pirate station that I broadcast in was Southside Radio, and that broadcast from an old ramshackle mobile home in a field in Rathmichael, County Dublin. And I remember cycling up there as a young fella, age 13 I think I was at the time, with my rucksack on my back and my couple of 45s that I had and a couple of albums, and walking through the field, saying hello to the horses and the sheep on the way up, and parking my racer and going into the caravan, the mobile home, which consisted of some pretty shoddy equipment, to say the very least.
Then towards the late 70s, business people got involved. They saw that there was potential in this, that the law didn't seem to be interfering as much as maybe it was expected. So this could have been an opportunity to make some money, and then there was a ready-made group of people who were interested in providing alternative music.
So there were very interesting surroundings that we had in those days, but we all had a lot of fun in those days. And the one thing about pirate radio throughout its history, and I'm sure it's still the same today, is that people were very passionate about what they were doing and they loved what they did.
But Carey and Robinson had different ideas which didn't involve doing it for fun. They believed that they could gamble on the fact that government inaction on pirate operators would continue, and that they could have a free run at launching a super pirate with a big signal, a big sound, and of course big advertising revenue. The result? Sunshine Radio.
The big thing on the dial at 539 medium wave, we're talking meters, we hadn't even moved to kilohertz in those days, was Sunshine Radio.
Sunshine Radio.
And a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to the Tuesday show. Declan meeting with you for the next 4 hours. Thank you to Martin for the last 4. 5.5 minutes past 2. That's Claire, and these are Rocky Sharp.
Sunshine Radio, which would pretty much dominate the Dublin scene for most of 1981, had launched with Robbie Robinson at its head, and Carey pretty much nowhere in sight. The relationship between the two had begun to fracture soon after the station went on air.
Robbie started to take it in a direction that Chris considered to be too parochial, too much, or too close to the UK model of local commercial radio.
Specifically for some Bob Marley, and who are we to argue when people ask for good records. And we also would like to let you know about the Malahide Musical and Dramatic Society.
It started to move into that more middle-of-the-road, comfortable ILR type format. And I think that's where the parting of the waves came.
The instant success of Sunshine, however, was a sign of Robinson's energy and talent, and a validation of the two Englishmen's belief in the enormous gap in the Irish radio market. But their acrimonious split was an indication of things to come. A fierce rivalry which was to exist between the two for many years, and Chris Carey's volatility and innate sense of self-belief. Traits which would eventually lead to the destruction of his greatest creation. For Chris Carey, back home on Millionaires Row in Surrey's stockbroker belt, it was business as usual. But a hankering after what he now knew was a missed opportunity kept him in touch with unfolding events in Dublin. By the summer of 1981, Chris Carey couldn't contain himself any longer. Egged on by Scottish-born Brian Mackenzie, another 1960s DJ who'd spent time with him on the pirate ships and was now running a commercial recording studio in Dublin, Chris came to Ireland for another look and another listen.
But I think that he realised and had a notion and a very strong gut instinct that this was a potential revenue generator. And I think he went in very much consciously to exploit that.
Carey's plan was simple: to do what Sunshine was doing, only better, and of course, to make more money. While Sunshine's signal beamed from the low-lying Sands Hotel at Portmarnock on the north side of Dublin, a position which favoured strong coverage north of the city, Carey's plan was to transmit from the Dublin Mountains. An elevated location would guarantee clear, uninterrupted coverage across all of the capital and beyond. More importantly, a strong FM transmitter would dwarf all of the small medium-wave technologies used by established Dublin pirates, giving Carey's station a massive commercial advantage. Over at Sunshine, Robbie Robinson was less than pleased.
Freaked out, especially as this was a huge, fat FM signal. which was clearer. I think Chris used to say that Sunshine Radio sounded like listening to Radio Moscow at night because of the, it was only several hundred watts of AM from a hotel in, north of the city. The reception compared to his 88.1 FM signal was really very poor.
In Donnybrook, RTE operating 2 stations from